Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. Dominic is still down in Florida, but he's on pina coladas this week. We have guests this week. This is going to be a freewheeling show. If you remember the last show, we had Mike Kaplowitz, who's a guest again this week. Welcome, Mike. And we had Brett Freeman, publisher of Halstead Media, on the last show, and we dealt with county government. Now we have added Bryan Fumagalli.
Fumagalli. It's been 9 times.
Right. Welcome, Bryan. Anyway, he's the editor of Yorktown News. Yorktown News, incidentally, is where you can find my column every week. You can also find it in the Mayapack Record, but you're not going to find it Mayapack News, but you're not going to find it in the Somers Records because they're like Cortland, a land of their own where they're lost, and may they rest in peace. And anyway, this show we are going to be a little bit more freewheeling, and we're going to talk, get Mike out of his comfort zone and deal with politics on a state,
good luck,
and national level. But Mike, and we're going to start with, because we started off the air on this, and we're going to come right on the air with it, because you brought in a copy from another publication. Scandal that now we are taping here on April 3rd. And there was a breaking scandal overnight. Mike, tell us about the scandal.
Well, I don't know personally, but the New York Times has reported.
No, but you read.
The New York Times is reporting has a rogues gallery of a whole bunch of individuals, mostly at the state level, who have gotten themselves into some trouble and some recent alleged trouble.
Started in Spring Valley.
This one has to do with Malcolm Smith, who unfortunately I've had the pleasure of meeting and knowing through the years because he's a state senator. And he represents parts of Queens.
My grandfather always told me there'll be people on your side you wish was on theirs.
He's out of Queens, and he evidently wants to be mayor of New York City.
Right, as a Republican.
And in doing that, a Democrat running on the Republican line, and in doing that, all alleged, as we sit here today, he tried to cook up a way of getting onto the Republican line. Evidently, if you get 3 out of 5 borough GOP Republican leaders, then you get permission to run on their line. And allegedly, he was trying to buy that support. In return for buying that support, the individual who was making the entree to these GOP Republican leaders said, "I also want to do a project in Spring Valley." And in doing this project in Spring Valley, it ensnared the mayor and the deputy mayor, allegedly, where they wanted a piece of the action.
Stop with the allegedly. We know it's alleged. You said it once.
There's a New York City and a Spring Valley connect. This is all connected.
Because
I saw it yesterday and I was confused.
And the state legislature, and it's bipartisan corruption.
Both.
That's right.
Everybody should be ashamed of themselves. This is just, and to the point that this rogues gallery, it's really depressing. I've been in public service for 16 years. I've been in the political world for almost 30. You got to be sad that people who started out with good intentions have gotten to this point where their call to public service has been so perverted that they are taking or allegedly taking bribes.
But some of these people don't belong in the rogues gallery.
Well, there's different levels of scandal.
Well,
sure.
One of them on there, I got a ticket.
Yeah, there are different levels.
And
of
the other
scandal.
one stole millions of dollars.
Well, they're different levels.
It's a weird gallery.
It's a weird gallery. There's one who was censured for sleeping at the home of a 21-year-old female intern after a night of heavy drinking.
Right.
Now she was allegedly, a female, 21, so she wasn't a minor.
Right.
I don't know the facts. I don't even know who that person is.
Yeah.
We have one who's a little closer to home. Again, I'm just reading what the New York Times says. Charged with unlawful possession of marijuana after he was stopped for speeding. We had one here who had an affair with an intern, was later not permitted to have interns. So you have a whole different level. The point is not the individuals.
Mike,
the point is to the culture.
You said people that entered with the best of intentions.
Andy's going to say he doesn't think they ever entered with the best of intentions.
I don't believe, and I've said this, I've written this, I don't believe you can corrupt an honest person. If a person is inherently honest, they cannot be corrupted. If these people took bribes, allegedly, and I'm tired of that word, for the rest of the show, everything is alleged. Okay? Everything is alleged for the rest of the show.
Some were convicted of it.
We'll
Some
talk
only
about
allegedly
this particular scandal. But we refer to this particular scandal.
Tell it to the judge, Andy. Tell it to the judge.
Well, we've just said it's all alleged.
Okay.
Okay? We got a blanket alleged.
Fair.
Okay, but anyway, I believe anybody that has been corrupted was inherently dishonest. I don't. So I don't take. I don't.
I couldn't disagree with you more. I respect your opinion. The people that I know that have entered public service, that are in public service, are to a person well-intentioned and honest people. But what turned some people was, I don't think, but you're entitled to your opinion, I don't think was a genetic flaw. That
character, not genetic, character flaw.
That in their gene pool makeup went in to rip people off. But even if you're right, what in the system allows inherently honest people or dishonest people?
This is right in my wheel. I was waiting for this.
So that's my question.
Okay.
And that's as a member of the public service world who takes it seriously and recognizes China walls, recognizes right and wrong, and works hard not to get near that line. What is it that we could do better as a society at the state and federal level?
That's why I've always said you're the best politician money can buy.
To avoid these scandals. Allegedly?
No, I'm only kidding.
Actually,
one of the reasons why Mike is my friend and we've broken bread together is I can attest that this man actually believes the stuff he says and he is incorruptible. I would not, it's just that I've known him for so long. So
what's your solution?
Okay, no, Mike, you asked.
I asked a question.
Where does it come from?
Well, that's
now,
one question.
I'm going to give you where it came from, and it comes from the top. We're going to go with the leadership. Right now, you have a state budget that has been passed by both parties that next October, to secure the votes of people with families with at least one child between $30,000 and $300,000,
right,
they're going to send them a check for $350 to secure their vote in October. It's the only way to read this.
It's blatant.
Right.
It's wrong.
So now, if I was to go to you and say, Mike, I want sewers in Shrub Oak. We already have them, so this is a hypothetical. Here's $350. I want you to vote for the sewer. They would arrest me and throw me in, convict me of bribery and throw me in jail. But when a politician does this, it's called a rebate. Now, when you have this kind of blatant corruption on the top, sponsored by the governor and members of the legislature, why would these other people feel that they shouldn't be able to get theirs? I mean, Albany's getting theirs.
Well, here's an extension of it. Look, I'm of the four of us have you run for office?
Never.
Okay.
I wasn't
the
allowed.
Unfortunate circumstance to bring yourself into being and to continue to reproduce yourself as an elected official, you got to get elected and reelected. And to get elected and reelected, you obviously need one more vote than the other person, and you need money to be able to get your message out. Two things have happened which have really been bad. One is people have stopped voting in droves. They don't vote. The turnout, particularly in some of these off-year elections, is ridiculous.
35% maybe if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. They're closer to 30 in many cases, okay? And of the 100%, that's not even the registered people. A good percentage don't even register to start. So the first is people don't even reward good behavior. They do it by staying home and never voting.
Well, I would argue the reason that's the case is because if you look on the local level and the county level, there's really little money you guys are really playing with. Most of it is state mandated, and most of it is stuff that you can't change.
But why would you not still discharge your civic duty? The message that we get as elected officials is that most people, A, aren't watching and B, care. And that's a really bad. So you got to talk to even just 30%. So bad people then only have to convince 16% of the people, majority of 30, right? The second part is even to get to that 30%, it costs money. At our level, none of us, very few of us are rich enough that we can self-fund, even at our level. My race costs typically $50,000 to $100,000 for a county legislative race. Mike Bloomberg can do what he wants. He's in a different world of his own, constitutionally and financially, right? There are certains that can do it. But we have to get money. If you have to then go raise the $50,000 to $100,000, which is not an insignificant money to raise, the salaries are less. My salary is $49,200, so I'm paying more. I'm spending more
plus
than
benefits.
even plus benefits, even more than the salary. I have to, by definition, go ask people for money. That process inherently creates the tension that winds up in many of these cases in this scandal.
But
and so, what do we do? I'm asking the question. I don't have an answer.
The fact that you and from all that Andy said, and I have no reason to think otherwise, are not doing anything untoward, shows that maybe the system isn't broken, the people in the system are broken.
Which is what I
you
said
asked for
from
money,
the beginning.
and you're not taking and doing this scandal. You're doing it right. So it's almost like if I start a business and I'm doing well and I'm doing money for myself, why should I be punished by overtaxation because other people are too lazy to do something? Why blame me or why blame, you know what I'm saying? If you're doing it right, you're proving that the system is good. It's just that some of the people in the system are bad.
Okay,
I
here
think
it
to a
is.
certain
Now,
extent.
wait a second.
You should give
Let's-
your- you know, I think,
But at some level, but okay, understand, I have another job. We talked about this at the last time, where many of my colleagues at the county level, we don't see this generally. I've never seen it. 16 years, both sides, all politicians, all parties.
Haven't seen
Haven't seen this kind of scandal
Oh,
and
okay.
corruption.
Yeah.
I think part of it, a big part of it, thank God, is that the issues that we're dealing with. You know, there's not even this temptation.
But Mike, we're not talking about bribing people, giving money to be able so they'll vote on an issue. The corruption that the major corruption we have seen out of Albany is setting up these nonprofits.
Correct.
Earmarking
Absolutely.
money for the nonprofits that are supposed to help seniors and the poor.
Absolutely.
And then stealing that money from the seniors
Yeah.
and the poor. Now, New York State is a generous state. We want to help the people
Generous
that
to
life
who?
is.
They've all the state people that have done it did exactly what Andy
Right.
said. When I ran in 2006 and then 2010 for state senate, in both cases I said it should be illegal to set up these nonprofits that Vinnie Libel famously set up, called the Putnam Community Foundation, and then he set up one called the Hudson
they're all
Valley
slush
Foundation.
funds. They're all
Right,
nonsense.
but
Taking
Yeah.
state money
You're
that
right.
goes into these funds, then you set up the board of directors on these funds.
With your friends and relatives.
They then
and you pay them
make
outrageous
the
salaries.
decisions to give money to certain projects, and guess what happens to the developers of those projects? They then contribute back to the politician, to their campaign legally, who the politician then takes this money
It's all legal,
and then
but it's all corrupt as
drives
can be.
cars
Yeah.
and gets their phone and all those other things. It is a
But
circle
what
of
happens-
corruption
But
and
what
wrong.
happens here is you get cynical view about the poor. That we like it says, we want to take care of the people that life crapped on. Through no fault of their own, life just crapped on them. And we as a people, as a state, and I believe in this, you want to help them.
I word
So-
it differently, but that's one way to put it.
But it is, let's face it, they had the dark cloud. They're the little,
Okay.
what's his name?
I say
in
they
the
fell.
lab now.
They fell off the tightrope of life into the safety net. But
Well,
as
I'm
your
not
description.
seeking votes, so I can say this. But anyway, so what happens is this money that we have generously earmarked for these poor people, these politicians enrich themselves and their friends and their relatives, and people say, screw the poor. We're giving them enough money. And it turns out the money's not getting
Andy, there's
to
a lot
them.
of that, but let me talk
Well,
if I could just answer your however, there are speeding laws, even though most people don't speed, and despite 100% of the people in the swimming pool, there are going to be a few corrupt people, either, as Andy pointed out, inherently corrupt, genetically corrupt,
You're right.
or the temptation brings them to corruption, whichever they get to. Right. What if we set up an alternative system that inherently goes to the very problem, which is that if we have a campaign financing law that is strict, that is inclusive, that says that society has to make an investment. You either make the investment up front or you make the investment in corruption down the road.
No.
You make an investment, if I might just, you make an investment up front and you, let's say on $2 per person in the state of New York, or whatever it would cost, would allow county, local, and state officials to run. They'd have to debate. They'd have limits on what they can spend. They'd have to raise
So you say
some
you should
money.
take $2 from me because you guys can't
Correct.
keep
The
yourself in line?
Because
I think that's
I'm going to
awful.
tell you, I'll tell you the fault of your argument. You see it right now in New York City. How many of the people running for the council are now under investigation for the campaign matching funds, faking the donors?
There's always going to be a way to
no,
do
I'm
stuff
just
if you
saying.
wanna do it.
You can't make a
Mike
corrupt
Kaplowitz
system honest.
Mike Kaplowitz is entrenched. Okay, I'm here, and you are a better public official, potential public official with better ideas, and you want to run against me.
Well, you got the money, and you got everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, but if you, however, know that if you can raise $1,000, you'll get $1,000, or whatever the ratio is, you then have the chance to say, you know what, I'm running against that guy Kaplowitz because I don't like what he does, I don't like his philosophy, whatever it might
But
be.
you limit
You now have the chance to step forward and say, without having to basically prostitute yourself to go either badly steal money or in another fashion just prostitute yourself to go get these dollars, you now have the standing to be able to run against that guy
wait a second.
Kaplowitz because you think you can do a better
Wait a
job.
So you're
second,
saying
Mike.
the law should prevent that person from being able to raise more money to
It's the law should allow
He wants to
people
give me
be
a chance
challenged.
to take on him
Correct.
through
All
having
camp-
you pay
And
for it.
furthermore, the me's of the world, to be able to know that while I'm working darn hard to stay on this side of the line, those that don't, in fact, okay, A, can be shown to be what they've done, but B, there's less reason to fall off the high and mighty
Mike,
and continue to do right by not seeking out these kind of
all
campaign dollars.
campaign finance law is incumbent protection because they're written by
It's
the
the opposite. It's the
incumbent.
opposite, Andy.
It is not
It's the
because you're
opposite.
limiting what a person can spend.
Including the incumbents.
I don't care. You can't limit.
no, but the
what a-
incumbent is spending government dollars to.
So is the challenger.
No.
No. I'm saying the incumbent is spending government dollars on different programs, to help.
Yeah,
But
the
I
Vinny Light
suppose-
Bell. The Vinny Light Bell. That's why you got to outlaw. The Senate has to
No,
outlaw.
I'm saying legally. I'm saying legally,
legally-
incumbents spend on different programs,
Right.
to help different constituents.
Like the $350 check that's going to go out in
Correct.
October.
And the member items that Albany's famous for. When I ran against ran against Vinny in 2006, every town I would show up in, the next day he'd have a press conference, almost literally, and he would bring hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was running against a machine in New York, and I would have leaders from the different towns say, "Can you please campaign in our town, please? Because we desperately need some money from Albany." And Somers, Tommy Cheverini, got a $450,000 sweeper.
the highway guy?
The highway guy,
Yeah, right.
who didn't need it. He already had one, but he says, "I'll take it because it's another one." And he explained to me that, you were running, you showed up, Vinny then wants to do well in Somers. So the system inherently took what, I don't think Vinny was born a bad guy. He just turned the system to his advantage and perverted it and took our money, and bad things happened. And I'm trying to avoid that.
So, how much of this do you think would campaign finance laws?
I think it would do a lot at my level and the state level. I don't know about if the stakes get really high at the federal level, but I think that at every level, if you take the one major problem, which is we want to do the right thing, but we as a generic group, but we have to get reelected, right? We want to get
Can
reelected.
you include newspaper advertising in this?
For
this
you,
law?
we would write in
Or-
a Somers,
Hey,
Yorktown,
now,
And
Mike,
Mayapack.
Yorktown
wait a
News.
second,
But
wait
with
a
that,
second.
yeah, we could draft it
Wait
that
a
way.
second. Hold on a second. Now, number one, being that I've been.
So I'm putting this forward as a theory.
I've been
that
in the
I think
private
that could make
sector
things
all
better.
my life, and these guys are in the private sector, and their
So am I.
job,
So
right,
am I.
and your
Definitely.
job is to convince somebody to give you money to do a service. Now, the same thing when you run for office. If your ideas aren't good enough to convince somebody to give you money to support them, then your ideas suck, and you shouldn't be running.
When have you turned ideological on me? Okay, that is egg-headed as I've ever
No,
heard.
it
And
isn't.
you are a practical fellow.
And I am
okay?
a practical
because
fellow.
if
I've
you're
been
running
taking-
against Vinny Libel in 2006, as ideological as I was and wet behind the ears, I wound up losing by a good solid 10 points. And the reason was
Because he
because I got
bought-
outspent $5 million
No, it
to
had nothing to do with that. Oh, please, it had nothing to
$250,000.
do with that. It was the money he gave to everybody from the state.
That's the part of the $5 million.
And all
Exactly.
the campaign finance laws in the world is not going to change
But
that
that's the
inherent
point.
corruption
I don't think anybody
in the
should have to.
system.
Why should any money? Why should when I work all day today? Why should a cent of the money I earn today go to you?
Told you he was
If I
the right of me.
if I
Told
don't
you he
want
was
it,
to the
Because
right of me.
then you get this.
we're gonna get that
You
no matter
get it
what.
No, I disagree.
Mike,
I disagree.
look
No matter
at-
what.
I disagree.
I just told you, you
Oh, I
got
think,
the
I
correct.
think
We're
the
getting
problem
no
would
matter
be
what.
solved if the state didn't spend all this money on the local level. I mean, why can't this money stay at the local level, at our local school boards, at our local town boards, where
What are
we?
you referring to? What money are you talking about?
I'm talking.
Brett?
I'm talking about why is
Everything's so top down.
yeah.
Right.
In terms of
It's a
they suck the
disaster.
money up to
Why-
Albany and then
giving
Why
the-
is Albany
yeah.
giving largesse to our local governments?
After taking theirs off the top, again, like the mafia, they're still taking their vig. You
well,
keep
the field.
forgetting that.
Every state does local aid, and frankly, we get federal and state aid just at the county level. We get, I'm going to say, $300 million. Why? Because it's a federal and a state charge for social services for certain things, and like the airport, the FAA requires certain things, so they pay us to be able to do certain things at our airport. If they require us to do it, it only makes sense that they also give us money to make that happen.
But if you're a school district,
so that's
the
fair.
opposite's happening. with these unfunded mandates.
Well, and counties gotten killed on a lot of this. We
Okay.
don't get paid for everything. I was
Okay.
saying earlier that we send $220 million each week in 50 seconds. On Tuesday morning, we wire it up to Albany for Medicaid. Medicaid is a federal state health insurance program. What does the county taxpayer have to do with a federal state health insurance program? Has nothing to do. We're not in the health insurance business, but yet you pay for it. So there are clearly dislocations. I mean, if the four of us got together, there's no question we could take the New York State $137 billion budget and do a better job. But we don't want to have the pressures that everybody else
No, wait,
everybody
I need
else
to
is.
that
change the
commentary is
topic
true.
now. I need to change the topic here.
Yep.
Because you did an editorial 3 weeks ago about elevators in the malls.
You're not going to get
All right.
away from this one.
I've been waiting for this one, where you say people that really shouldn't need the elevator shouldn't use the elevator because there are people with families.
I
and
didn't say
all that.
I did not say they should not use the elevator.
Why don't we let Brett state his case and we go back to
Yeah.
First
Get
of
it
all,
over with.
it was a lighthearted editorial.
Yeah, I know, but I'm one of those people that uses the elevator. See, I was in a power failure once. I was stuck on an escalator for 6 hours. I was never going
On
to
an
let that happen
escalator?
again.
Escalator.
Walk.
At least you're paying attention to what I'm saying. Anyway, but no. I'm one of those people
As
that
a parent of a toddler, we have a stroller, and the only way to push the stroller is on the elevator. You can't take a stroller onto an escalator.
Correct.
And same thing with people in wheelchairs; they can't go on an escalator.
Correct.
So all I'm simply saying is that when people are walking on an elevator, they should look around them to see who really needs it first.
So you're
Why?
saying, so you're basically saying be polite.
Why
His editorial is
no,
be
no,
nice.
no,
That's
no.
the editorial.
You're saying your problem
Yeah.
should be everybody else's. They should give a shit about you. They don't even know you.
I'm saying the elevator at the mall exists for people with strollers or
No, the elevator at the mall
wheelchairs.
exists to make going between floors easier so they can spend more money.
At the
without-
Danbury Mall, there's only like one elevator.
But if a person wants to use it, doesn't matter that why should they care what your problem is? I want to use the elevator. Now, if there's not enough room for the elevator for you, your wife, and your baby, and me, we got a problem. Then maybe
What
should
would you have done if on the Titanic? Would you have jumped to the front?
Huh?
Would you have jumped to the front, or would
Oh
you have
yeah.
been chivalrous?
Oh no, chivalry. No. I would gladly sacrifice your life that I might live.
It's
I would too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way it is. I mean, I'm
I think it's
sorry.
an instinct. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm sorry. I told you. Yeah, I'm sorry. This whole thing about what they said, dying for your country. Like Patton said, you make the other guy die for his, and that's how you win.
Right.
You dying doesn't help anybody unless you're very well insured.
Actually, I think another thing I said in that editorial is now that women are enabled to be in combat positions in the military, when is the National Organization of Women going to demand that women who turn 18 years old be subject to the draft?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you've got to understand, these kind of things with like the National Organization for Women and all this, these are very liberal groups and they're very hypocritical. Where were they with the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal? Now, at the same time, you had a senator from, I believe, Oregon, that only touched a woman's breast while she was clothed. And they booted his butt out of office. But Clinton can play his little, games there where, working for him leaves a bad taste in your mouth. That's all right. Now shuts up.
Taste.
was
Did you
impeached.
say taste in your mouth? Is that what you
It leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
he was
working for him,
impeached.
yes.
There've only been 2 U.S. presidents impeached.
Please,
So-
because the deal. But
Well, Andy's point
he
is
was
he did-
impeached
he did
on
go to
no.
the-
He was impeached
the
on
groups
perjury.
stayed behind him,
I'm
though,
talking
the
about
liberal groups.
all those liberal groups.
They
would've-
stood behind him.
Right.
That's right.
The women's
It's
women's organizations stood behind him because a lot of women's organizations, it's not about women's rights, it's about liberal causes.
That's right. The
Gentlemen-
liberals are liberals first.
Gentlemen,
Always.
Gentlemen, there's enough hypocrisy running down the middle of the street. Okay, every side.
But
has
most
it.
of it's on
When
your side of the aisle.
No.
Oh yes, it is.
When it's not your ox being gored, it's different.
Wait,
than when
oh,
it's
come
your
on.
ox being
No,
gored.
no.
Steve Katz voting for
On both sides. of it.
voting against medical marijuana and they getting caught with marijuana allegedly.
No,
in his car.
and like I said in the column, he represented his constituency. Most of that constituency are hypocrites. They smoke. They're from my generation.
Most?
If you smoke pot in my generation as a kid, you're still smoking now. Now, you don't want people to know. You don't want your kids to know. You don't want your friends to know.
Andy, it's
So-
a car at 10 a.m. going to work. on a committee that meets on drug addiction? I don't think so. That's a fact pattern that
I've
never heard before.
I
That's kinda
said
unique.
it's that he represented his.
And then his
I
first
thought it was a
statement.
joint
And then his
committee.
first statement.
Yeah, joint committee.
And, that's
Joint
very cute.
session.
And then his first statement of contrition was, basically, the facts will come out. But more than that, just stand by. I stand by my record, and the work I've done has been greater than. I mean, that was not even.
This was
And
a.
he
He
Sense
puts
of-
himself in a very. He put himself in a very bad
Yes, and
position.
he's good. And I've already
When
talked
you
to
vote
him.
on something and then you have that in your car.
Now, I told you this before. I've been in my conversations when this is done at the end of April. See, the problem is they schedule it with at the same time the budget vote was. And when the court realized that he has to be there to vote on the budget, they did postpone it because the budget also affects the court system. So they moved it up to the end of April. And he's already said that he will do his act of contrition at the end of April when this thing is settled, because number one, he admitted that his vote for medical marijuana was wrong.
Where did he admit that?
They told it to me, and I have no problem saying this, and and I'm going to say this. This was not an off
An
the
apology
record,
is to come. You're
and the apology
Okay.
too,
Well, we'll see.
because he knows. See, Steve is not a hypocrite by nature, so when it happened,
Why isn't his genetic?
I said it killed him. He said he says it's the only vote in his life he couldn't sleep after making. And so, when you go against your basic nature because of a political consideration, which he admitted was a political consideration, he knew this was a mistake. And it's one that it's going to cost him about $200, maybe $300 to learn from. Financially, because that'll be the fine. These are only violations.
But overall, I think if he hadn't made that vote, if that vote never even came up, just say it didn't happen. I don't think, obviously, what he did, the state of New York has decided it's not that big of a deal.
It's not that big of a deal.
So I don't think you should have to apologize at all if you take the vote out of it, because New York State has said, $100 or it's a ticket. That's what the state has decided. It's not that big a deal.
To me,
But there are two different courts. There's the court of law and there's the court of public opinion.
Hey,
and
the
the
people in New York State have decided that they're willing to tolerate almost anything
question
to these days.
Well, do we?
You
That's,
have-
and there goes to the question.
And that's why
And
it's
that's the
passed in the
issue.
first
That's
place.
the issue of what do we want our leaders? Where do we want our leaders to be? And that's why I'm really troubled today because of the blatancy of and the actions of the six that allegedly that took bribes.
You wouldn't put that on the same level as Katz, would you?
It clearly no, but it doesn't. But the bigger question is, what do we see in our leaders, and what can we reasonably
just
expect in
saw
our
it in
leaders?
a budget
and that's
that
the question.
caught it.
I don't
You
have an
just
answer.
saw-
to
And
Yeah,
that.
but-
I think the answer is that most people, if you were to walk outside, they'd say,
we got to
they're all
wrap
crooks.
this up. But
Fairly or
my
unfairly.
final statement on this is you're seeing it in a budget that codifies corruption with that $350 check. And until you change the leadership, you'll always have, it will be the trickle-down theory of corruption. Anyway,
Well, that's a new one.
This was a quick show, and these were my opinion. I'm doing it again. This is what I say. What say you? Brian, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Andy.
Brett, I hope you had a good
Andy,
time.
thanks a lot.
Sorry to put you on the spot about the elevators, but
that's great.
I've been waiting for that one. Mike, thank you again.
bet,
And
Andy.
you will be back before November?
I'll be glad to.
I mean, I'm glad you stayed for these two shows.
Sure. Thank
It's
you.
always
Thanks for
good to
having
be
me.
surrounded by my friends. That makes the show fun.
Thank you, Ryan.
Anyway, see you soon. Have a good night, everybody.